Welcome to Blake 7, The Way Back, and today we're going to do some side steps. We're going to look at the Big Finish story, the box set from the worlds of Blake 7, Avalon, box set number 1. And I'm Philip.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Dwayne.
So, great to be with you all. First story in the box set of 3 stories is Terra Firma by Steve Lyons, and this is what it's about.
The resistance on Earth has been decimated. Blake has been arrested. Avalon returns home to the seat of the Federation's power to pick up the pieces, but she'll need the help of a self-centered smuggler named Jenna.
I don't see a way for that to happen, but I'm sure the salvage planet has another. Crass makes a good point, though. This isn't our war.
How can you still not see it? This is everybody's war.
Do we have to have this conversation again? Look, thank you, both of you, for bailing us out at the spaceport. But my priority now is finding the quickest way off this miserable world.
Oh, you'll need new identities. The old ones will be on a watch list.
Well, there are people I can contact, some favours I could call in.
Oh, you don't sound certain.
I know a good forger, but like the rest of the world, he isn't taking my calls right now.
He will by the end of the day, I guarantee it.
Excellent. So, this is the first Big Finish we are officially listening to as part of the podcast. And it basically is actually one of the first stories to take place. This is written by Steve Lyons, who's been writing, he writes lots of Doctor Who stories for Big Finish, so it's great to have him kicking off this whole new series. Now, it stars a new actress playing Avalon, Olivia Poulet, but the great thing is that Sally Levette's back as well. So just a few other people in it. Nicholas Asprey, William Ellis, and Becky Wright make the cast of 5. As already mentioned, it's written by Steve Lyons. The sound design and music are by Simon Power, and the theme song that's been written for this set is by Simon Powers. Though as we go along and do these side steps, you'll see each of the box sets has a different theme for nearly every single box set. The director and producer is John Ainsworth. The cover art's been done by Tom Newbury, and all-important sound design and music has been done by Simon Power, as well as the theme song. So just a little bit more background information. This was actually recorded during COVID, so during lockdown. And so there's actually a remote sound engineer credited for this called Jack Townley. And also because it's one of the very first Big Finish stories done remotely, they got 3 different sound designers and 3 different composers to do it, because they were a bit worried about how long it was going to take for one person to be able to piece it all together. Because doing a remote sound design is a lot more time consuming than doing one in studio. So that's why along the way, we're going to see there's 3 different sound designers and composers. So firstly, guys, let's talk about the title. What do you think about in terms of the title Terra Firma?
Well, it's in the title, isn't it? It kind of gives it away. That's where it's set, which is applicable because it comes very clear very quickly that this is set just before the first episode of Blake 7 on television, because we hear news reports going on in the background about Blake being arrested and being put on trial and the crimes that he's been accused of.
The date of Rog Blake's trial has been set. Blake, a former dissident who recanted his radical beliefs, is charged with child sex offences. He will face a tribunal in 2 days' time. A guilty verdict is expected. Rog Blake has been convicted and sentenced to lifelong exile. He will be transported to a penal planet alongside other Category 9 offenders, among them terrorists, murderers, thieves, and smugglers. This measure is taken for the safety of every citizen. Seditionist elements will not be permitted to disrupt our orderly society. Obedience means peace. The President has condemned the attack upon the Food Manufacturing Division. Speaking from his lunar residence, he has asked all citizens to be vigilant for the terrorist known by the codename Avalon.
So, yes, it's a very applicable title.
Any other things that you picked up from the voiceovers? The other one that stood out for me was they talk about a rebellion being put down on Saurian Major. That's, of course, where Callie is.
Our troopers have defeated insurgents on Saurian Major, protecting a transceiver complex to safeguard vital medical shipments.
Callie survives the killing of all the people on Saurian Major, because we find that out in episode 4 of Blake 7, but it mentions the fact that Saurian Major, that the whole rebellion's been put down. As well as hearing Blake's story happening in the background as well, there's just that little bit of Callie's story too. Yeah, so terra firma, it's a Latin phrase meaning firm ground or solid earth, and of course another way of talking about Earth. And of course, Blake 7 doesn't actually go to Earth very often. So the fact that this first box set all takes place on Earth is a bit unusual. In fact, I'm not sure how many times it gets to Earth altogether, but you almost have as many times in this one box set as you do in terms of visits with Blake on Earth. Yeah, so we already mentioned where we were set in terms of Jenna. Tell us a bit about the story. What do you think about the story and the plot lines and where this goes to?
I love the way this is weaved in so closely with Jenna being the connecting thread throughout this. She's about to meet Blake and become involved with him and be a crew member of the Liberator and one of his fellow rebels. And it's interesting that that relationship that gets talked about in Project Avalon by Jenna is really explored heavily here. So I think it's a really nice way that they've weaved everything together. The extras at the end were interesting because John Ainsworth was talking about the inspiration for these box sets, The Worlds of Blake 7, and it was about the time that Disney was doing all those different Star Wars offshoot. And so that was one of the inspirations for doing it. They were kind of forced into it because of the unfortunate death of Paul Darrow. I mean, there had been a few cast members who had passed away, but Paul Darrow was so integral to Blake 7. They'd already recast Dana, but, you know, they weren't going to recast Avon. They went down this path. And for this set, I was very pleasantly surprised.
This is sort of the first time I'm veering off into other areas of Big Finish. I haven't really done much more of Big Finish other than Doctor Who. And it's kind of nice to be listening to more of a science fiction kind of based story. I think Doctor Who is veering off into a bit of fantasy more than science fiction these days. I was actually it was quite nice just to have something science fiction based. I liked that it was just before the first episode, which, like you said, it wasn't obvious straight away, but it was obvious pretty quickly that that's what was going to happen and where we were based. The only thing that kind of took me out of it a little bit sometimes was Jenna, because I could tell she was older and she sounded a bit more educated than what Jenna sounded on TV to me. So that kind of took me out a little bit, but I mean, that's understandable. It's 40 years after they actually did the show. So it's kind of understandable that
spending 4 months on the London must have done something to Jenna's intelligence.
Yeah.
Set it back a few years, I reckon, with all those blokes on the London.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah.
I do think they're trying to write Jenna the way the character was originally visioned to be, in terms of space smuggler, very with it, clever, not tolerating fools gladly. And so I think they set that sort of thing up quite well for her.
Mm.
I think it's nice to have that story in terms of how did Jenna end up in that cell in that first episode of The Way Back. And so it's nice having this episode, seeing what's happening there, and just the fact that we know this is running in parallel. Because actually, I think they also mentioned the massacre too, of the massacre that happens in Blake. So you've got these parallel stories running side by side. Once again, you've got another cell happening in terms of terrorism cell, so which has connections with the original group that has been killed, but also still quite distinct, but with their own mission. Now, they recast Avalon in terms of for the actors, and when we actually reviewed Avalon, we weren't overly impressed by the performance that the actress gave. We didn't say it was dreadful, but we sort of did feel her performance wasn't quite as good as everybody else in the show.
If you recall, I thought she was okay.
You thought she was okay. The rest of us thought she was a bit weaker than everyone else.
Yeah.
I think we thought she was better when she was playing the robot than when she was actually playing Avalon. Yeah, it was what we thought.
That's right. Dwayne was much kinder than the rest of us. Olivia Poulet, what do we think about the recasting of Avalon to Olivia Poulet?
Oh, it is much stronger, obviously, and she's got a lot more to do. We didn't get to see Avalon that much doing what she's meant to be doing in the TV series, like being this terrorist or or smuggler or whatever they call her. So it was good to get more of a backstory and find out why she's so important in the TV show.
I found myself Well, Olivia's performance is great. She's done lots of things for Big Finish. You may have a list of things that she's done. I didn't get a chance to look. She's done lots of things, so she's very competent. But I found myself throughout this whole box being less interested in Avalon and more interested in the characters around her. So maybe that'll change in the second set. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the character of Avalon. But the performance, Olivia's always great.
We will actually be talking to Olivia Poulet. In fact, we'll drop to her soon. But yeah, in terms of Big Finish, she's done lots of Doctor Who's and things, but probably the other big role she's done for Big Finish is Emma Peel in the Avengers box series.
Yes, yes.
And
I knew there was a big one there somewhere.
As Emma, she's just magnificent. So she really gets to play really strong women, which is nice to see.
To be honest, a bit like Dwayne said, I kind of thought for a box that was called Avalon, she wasn't in it as much as I thought she was going to be in it. It really was more about the characters around her that I thought, yeah.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is what they did with the first 3 or 4 episodes of Blake 7, which was slowly introducing the crew. We have Blake, and then then we meet Jenna and we meet Villa. Then we meet Gan and we meet Avon, and then we meet Callie. And so it is slow reveal of who the 7 are going to be. And in this first box set, and I think we'll continue a bit more in the second box set, we're slowly seeing her pull together her team. And I think you're right. I think some of the casting, some of the people are really interesting. So who stood out for you in terms of the other cast members that were alongside her?
Well, in Terra Firma, obviously it was Jenna who I was interested in, and so the relationship between them. There was a tension that was alluded to in Project Avalon that was really honed well in this script and played well by Sally. Yeah, I thought that was really nicely done. So yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it, the relationship between them. But she was a little bit skeptical, a little bit cynical. I enjoyed that.
So Jez sort of appeared at the beginning with Krask, who's a very interesting, sort of down-to-earth, nasty character, but still, so not very smart, but he's still sort of loyal. I think the thing for me, the one that's interesting is actually the Faye character, played by Becky Wright, who has done 25 Big Finish productions she's done. So she's often playing young children. She's not that young, but she's got a good young voice. And just this 16-year-old computer whiz hacker, but quite innocent, I think was quite an interesting character to have there as well. And of course, having a young person there sort of ramps up the danger a bit more.
When I looked at this and saw that it was 3 different sound designers and musicians, all the sound designers did the music as well. And Simon Power is one that he hasn't done I think he probably has done more Big Finish now, but when I started noticing him only 5 years ago, I think there was a Doctor Who called Cry the Vulturess. I get him and David Rucroft mixed up, but I think it was Simon Power who did Cry the Vulturess, and that one absolutely, it still stands out in my mind to this day. And I thought every time I see his name now, I think of that story, Cry the Vulturess, and I look forward to whatever he does. Having done the theme music, I really enjoyed this. It's very interesting that only in the last couple of weeks, I've been getting right back into exploring the back catalogue of Kraftwerk. And I've always been a Kraftwerk fan, but I haven't listened to them for a long time. And this kind of reminded me of a cross between Kraftwerk and Vangelis. So it was like Kraftwerk does Blade Runner type thing, without the techno beats, obviously. I really enjoyed that aspect because as great as the musicians are for Big Finish, you get Howard Carter is a huge one that's used a lot. Even Joe Kramer is used a lot. He's a very talented guys. You do get used to their style of music, and their style of themes that they make are similar. So it's very refreshing in this instance for me to get Simon Power to do this theme, and I really love it. I love it. And John Ainsworth as producer and director, at this time he wouldn't have been the head producer at Big Finish. He would have been just doing this as a line producer. He was very good with the Blake 7 box sets leading up to these, and he always does something. He puts the little John Ainsworth twist on things that I really enjoy. So he's perfect for Blake 7, if you ask me.
Okay, let's move to the second story in the box set, which is by our friend Gary Russell, called Throwback.
Argo Madison's career as a clerk was uneventful until a band of outlaws burst into his ordered life and brought it crashing down around him. Now, Captain Travis of Space Security wants to know what Madison knows about the rebel leader, Avalon.
Why am I here?
The Med Center has done all it could, patched you up, kept you alive. You were unconscious for 3 days.
Oh, I see. So I'm not going to die then?
From your injuries? No.
Oh, that's good. I know who you are.
Unlikely. I rarely come to Earth. I was born here. I got away. I consider myself luckier than you.
I never forget a record.
Really?
Even one that's been frequently adjusted, such as yours. Captain Travis, Alpha 15105, court-martialed twice in 4 years under Section 3 of the War Crime Statute Code. Previous rank, Space Commander, Space Headquarters. Has 3 times applied to regain said rank, plus seeking an executive officer posting at FedStat 1, reporting directly to the Supreme Commander.
I can see why Central gave you so much leniency in your job. I'm surprised that you went to such lengths to save the records, of course.
They are my life.
So once again, the draw to get people to buy the box set, I think the two things they've used Sal Yvette and they've used Stephen Greif, because they're the old timers, and so bringing back those two characters has sort of guaranteed us that we will buy the set to have a listen to. So firstly, it's called Throwback. Why was it called Throwback?
Because it's throwing back to Madison's past, the throwback to his history and to Travis's history, and him going through the Federation and his and killing his parents. That's what I took it as.
I think there's a few different throwback things there. Is it something to do with him having ASD and being that genius? So it was having these savant type skills as someone with ASD. So there's lots of talking about that, which, obviously it's very current time.
Yeah, so often the idea of throwback is actually used often in animals or in people. So it's a common trait or characteristic that you haven't seen for a while. And so sometimes, something like if you had a black dog and then the black's been gone for a while, after a few puppies and litters and different generations, a black puppy can be thrown back in, and that's called a throwback. And in this situation, the Federation has killed all people who are on the spectrum, who are ASD, and this child is a throwback. And the reason why, actually, I think throwback is true in terms of his parenting too, and the whole reason why they're thrown out of the spaceship is because they allowed him to live. So in Federation society, they should have had him aborted or killed when he was born, because they didn't allow this sort of child to live, which is just bizarre when you think about it, because although certainly Madison's lacking social skills, his abilities, his super memory, his ability to see patterns, it would be such a strength for the Federation. But because they're frightened of people who are different, they kill them all off. So it's another side of the Federation, which is pretty brutal in many ways.
Oh, I didn't know that was called Throwback. So there you go. I learned something.
No, I mean, you are right. A throwback is also a memory of something that happened in the past.
Yeah, that's what I took it as. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. It's a great title. I think Gary has written a really stunning title with this.
This is my favorite out of the three. This is the one I enjoyed the most. Yeah.
Why?
Well, I really liked Stephen Greif's voice. He's got a great voice for audio. So that was really good. And the story was great. Argo Madison was an annoying, whinging character, so I thought he was great because he did exactly what he was meant to do. Annoyed the crap out of me. I thought the guy played it very well. It just that he just got the voice just right, that it was just whinging. I just wanted him to shut up. Which is a good thing. Not shut up as in, just stop talking. I just thought, oh God, just stop whinging and move on.
It's actually interesting. I had remembered this story as a two-hander. I'd remembered it just as a story between Travis and Madison, and I had remembered there was someone else who came in and did a few lines to set up the machine. I hadn't realized, because this actually, I think, might have the last cast, because you've also got all these throwback scenes to his past, and in terms of meeting people in the rebellion, setting things up, all those sort of bits and pieces. So it was interesting because my memory of this was just a two-hander, and it is basically is in some ways just a two-hander. Like the whole storyline is these two characters, and then you got bits and pieces happening on the other side. But there was far more action by other people than I had remembered.
I did enjoy the character Dag.
I've not thought about it. Not my problem. My problem is a ship called the Carthage.
They've not thought about it either.
What do you mean by that?
The farmer depot isn't set up like that. I've been there dozens of times, part of our training. You couldn't plant explosives in there. There's only one way to corrupt the drugs themselves.
Whatever. No one really cares.
Well, they should, because it's one of the administration's greatest scientific successes. Everything is carefully temperature controlled in there, because it's kept well below freezing. I helped design the thermal suits the chemists have to wear. So, unless they know how to adjust the inflow pipes by a few degrees and cause the drugs to overheat, literally evaporate their potency, their raid will be for nothing.
Who was in there too. Bit of a Carol Royal type character who was a bit more thinking, bit more contemplative, but I don't think he's quite knows her.
I'm not sure. I mean, she's not important to him. I mean,
yeah,
her job is just to work this machine, and she just doesn't care. When's the story set, by the way?
Is it just after the events of Terra Firma?
It's hard to know. It's just after. It's a bit of time afterwards. I actually think it's almost before Seek, Locate, Destroy, because he's heading for Space Command after this, and at this stage he's a commander, and in Seek, Locate, Destroy he's just been given his commission back to be Space Commander again by Servalan, and in part it was probably because of this mission, which he thought was successful, but in the end, spoilers, we knew wasn't.
Mm.
Because of this mission he'd done, which is why he because he got his commission back. So it's still, I think it's probably still that period. It's hard to know. Blake has probably escaped by this stage. It's a few months later. Blake has probably escaped. He may not know that yet, or he's about to become aware of it. But it's somewhere between that period. But the fact that he's still a captain here, being demoted, and waiting for his next command to come, it's sort of in that sort of period.
I think he was rather grovelly towards Servalan in his message too. So he was trying to get his stripes back. Yeah. So that monologue that he did where he was talking to Servalan was interesting to listen to as well.
It was. Other things that stood out from the story?
There was a part in there where Madison was talking to Travis and started telling Travis about what was going to happen in his future, like how angry he was.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, good. And I thought, is he talking about how the actors changed in seasons 1? I thought it was because they played it so differently. I thought, is that what they're referring to? That the two different characters of Travis from season 1 to 2? That's what I picked up from that. Yeah,
definitely an allusion to that because their personalities are so different. Those two characters, even though they're the same man. And that does get explored. I'm sure at some point we'll explore that with the other box sets that Big Finish have done. Particularly the Clone Masters was a fascinating one. So we're gonna look into that down the track. But yeah, I definitely picked up on that, and I thought that was fascinating. I'd forgotten all about that.
I do love the fact that Big Finish tries to fill in these gaps and inconsistencies and tries to plug holes, and that's one of the funnier ones. Now, of course, another returning character from the TV series, this one is Dev Tarrant, played by Malcolm James. He's been recast as well. I'm pretty sure I think the actor has died who played the originally Dev Tarrant.
He has, yeah.
Yep, the one who betrayed Blake and betrayed them all with his limp. What do we think so far? We're going to see him a lot more in the next story. Any comments about this character, though, and the choice to bring him back?
Oh, it's always good to bring back interesting characters, and he was an interesting character in episode 1 of the TV series. I just don't know if I'm totally convinced by his casting. I couldn't sort of picture him based on that particular. I know it's hard to recast, and he's got such a distinctive look about him, and I would have expected to be able to hear someone talking with a curl in his lip. You know, Tom Baker described that actor with, he always had a curl in his lip. I remember that from the Tom Baker years videos. But yeah, he has played the part previously in other Big Finish as well, so they brought him back for this set. So yeah, always good to revisit characters.
Yeah, so we see him later in his life. In fact, at the end of this story, at the end of the third story, when he's about to leave Earth, he's actually off to head towards the adventures we're going to meet him in down the track in the. I think no, maybe it's not the Chronicles. I forget which story we're going to see him. At some stage, we're going to bump into him again, though, and see what happens to him. But this is now gone. Before he's already recorded those stories, but he's coming back now to do his previous. Yeah, the timey
I know
wimey
what you mean.
big finish.
Well, this one is very distinct as well because this has been sound designed and musicked by Nigel Fairs.
Our friend Nigel.
So, yes, he's done a great job here, as he always does. He does it well. He's done a lot of Doctor Who, but he's also done a lot of spin-off stuff as well. And this is not so much a spin-off as it is another franchise. Yeah, he's got a different way of music, so it makes this story quite different. I was thinking about this and how all three of these stories sound different slightly in their music and sound design, and we never really got that a great deal in the 70s because it was mostly Dudley Simpson, and we notice when a different musician came in. It was very stark, the difference in tone. Things like Terror of the Zygon, Seeds of Doom, Silurians, Mutants, Jewel for Blake 7. So lots of different sounds for stories that weren't Dudley Simpson. So in Doctor Who, we got this when the composers changed, when J&T took over. So we get slightly different tones, even though they were kind of similar, but the composers were different. So you get lots of different scores. And I like that about this set. I like it that it's done by three different guys. I know it was done for practical reasons, and it may be something that they like to do for costs and more overall thematic consistency with box sets in general. But I actually have really enjoyed this. And Nigel Fairs has a distinct tone that you can pick up too.
Yeah. As a sound design, doing a lot of flashbacks, which happened here, and changes of areas, I think Nigel really managed to. You always knew where you were, even though you were jumping around time quite a bit. Gary, you were part of the very first Worlds of Blake 7 when they realized they couldn't continue in the format they'd been using. And so they started doing side steps. So Avalon box set 1 was the first one, and you did the second story, Throwback. How was it discussed with you about what they were planning to do?
It was John Ainsworth was the producer, and he came to me and he said, "Look, we're doing this," and I thought it was quite an interesting idea as a nice little sidestep. And he explained to me what they wanted to do with Avalon and how they were building up this new group for Avalon to sort of lead, and you could do stuff with Avalon that wasn't in any way tied into the timeline of the regular characters. These stories could all be running parallel. Certainly with sort of seasons 1 and 2 and probably 3 as well. Who knows what happened to Avalon? So I immediately said, and also he was talking about wanting, as I said, to create a set of new supporting characters. And so I was talking to him and I was talking to Steve Lyons, who was the script editor, and said, look, I want to do a two-hander. I want to do a story for Stephen Grives. I want to do a Travis story that's a two-hander with someone. And originally, obviously, it was going to be Avalon. And they said it doesn't work if it's Avalon because that kind of ruins everything. So they said, could you make it a new character? And they gave me the name and said, this is going to be one of our new crew for Avalon, but you can introduce him into your story. And that was it. I had a complete free hand in how to develop that character and who he was. All I had was his name, which was lovely and very trusting of them. And so I thought, well, what I really wanted to do is someone who's a little bit neurodiverse, a little bit on the spectrum, a little bit intense, because I thought that kind of person could work quite well on audio and work quite well on Avalon, and therefore not be a cipher or a copy of anyone that's a board liberator. Because that's the difficulty when you do these things. If you're setting up an alternative team of rebels, you don't want to just recreate Avon, Blake, Villa, Gan, Jenna, Callie, etc., but with different names. So I wanted to have a character who's completely different. So someone who had worked in records all his life and was kind of obsessed with everything being neat and compartmentalized, and therefore being able to use that very literal approach to everything as his way of tricking Travis, really, because Travis is a meat and two veg kind of guy, says what he thinks, reads what's on the tin and says, yeah, that'll be it. And the subtle nuances of someone manipulating him with just a choice of odd words, I found really quite interesting. And as I was writing the script, it wasn't my original intention, but as I was writing the script, I realized that actually, why would this guy, who's effectively a coward, but not in the same way that Villa is, he's a coward by logic, why would he allow himself to be tortured by Travis? Why wouldn't he just tell him what he wants? And I thought, so he needs to have a backstory with Travis. He needs to have a reason for wanting to set Travis up to fail, to trick him. So I brought in this whole thing about his family and Travis having murdered his family. And it was a much younger Travis as well. And of course, Travis at this point isn't the space commander. He's still a captain. He hasn't been given his rank back by Servalan. So he has a lot to prove. And it just became a really fun project to write. I enjoyed these two characters. And I think it was reasonably early on that Steve said to me, it doesn't work with just two people. And I said, well, I don't want to have too many. So I had 4 people. I gave Federation guy a sort of friend in the cafe, and I gave Travis an assistant. And then they wanted to bring in a couple of other characters of their own at the end, and that was fine by me because I was trying to do it as low budget as possible. So every time someone says, oh, you can have a bit more budget and a few more actors, I was like, whee, I'm in for that. But the fundamental core of it is I wanted this two-hander between two very smart people.
It was interesting listening to it again. I've made the comment in the review that I'd remembered it as a two-hander, and listening to it again last week, I was surprised by there are other characters in it.
There are other characters in it, but it is at heart it's a two-hander, because I just think that's what Travis would be good at. You look at the way Travis deals with Callie. You look at the way that Travis and Servalan deal with Kasabi. They're very into one-on-one interrogation, and they don't care about the brutal outcomes. That lack of morality makes Travis a very interesting character to write for.
Now, choose to make the character neurodivergent. That was your choice. Why that decision? Because I mean, it's a fascinating storyline, and the throwback idea and the Federation's cruelty towards difference.
Well, it's something that I have written. This is a sort of, ever since I came back from Australia, really, I have discovered through no conscious decision that a lot of my writing of anything fiction recently has always contained at least one character who is neurodiverse in some respect. And I think it's just an instinctive thing that I find that an interesting thing to write about, because as a fan of a science fiction show, we're all on the spectrum to some extent. And I just don't think it's something that is explored very successfully, very well. If you're not careful, it can end up being used quite cheaply and quite almost negatively. And that's the one thing you never want to do. But I find neurodiversity, and I find all the different strata of neurodiversity terribly interesting, and it makes for interesting three-dimensional characters.
I mean, I think you're right. I think the fan base of Blake Seven and Doctor Who have a lot of neurodiverse members in it. Probably most of us.
Yes, I think you have to be to. You know, it's not a bad thing, but to be a collector of something, to be a fan of something, to be interested in the minutiae of how television is made or whatever, automatically you've got that slight quirk within you. And I think for years and years and years, we have spent, as a society, we've spent many, many years trying to push it to one side, trying to squash it down, trying to say that difference in people is something to be ignored or hidden or be ashamed of. And of course it's wrong. It's exactly though it should be celebrated, and it should be absolutely given neon headlights, because it's what makes us all unique. It's what makes us all different from one another, and we all contribute to society because of it. We're not all mindless robots. And I look back, I remember being at school back in the 70s, and now looking at the people there who were either dyslexic or quite neurodiverse. But back then they were treated almost like they were idiots. They were put to the back of the class and forgotten because nobody was willing to understand about dyslexia. No one was willing to understand about the differences in people and the way they react to stimuli and things like that. And I look back and I'm utterly ashamed on behalf of all the teachers and the educators and the parents, frankly, of people back in the 60s and 70s who treated people like that so abominably. So I think everything you can do today to reset that balance and celebrate that difference and that diversity has got to be a magnificently good thing. And I'm very, very keen to do it always.
Yeah, I mean, it became his superpower. Even though you could see that there was difficulties with relationship, but he doesn't like the outdoors, and those things that were hard for him. He still has a superpower in terms of what he was doing, in terms of his memory recall, which made him a strong character. Now, I'm assuming Throwback. We had some debate about the topic. I'm assuming Throwback was the idea of Madison being born. In terms of, it sounds like the
Yeah.
Federation has worked.
I wanted someone who was completely unusual within the administration, someone that they would have put into a medical room normally or something like that, and yet they found a job for him that suited him.
Even though they still executed his parents because they did the wrong thing by having him, but they're
Yes,
still going to use him.
but that's the launch for the story. And you've got to bear in mind that they arrested the parents. They didn't actually execute him. It's Travis that killed them.
True.
It wasn't that they were being sent really to execution. They were just being shunted off to Cygnus Alpha or whatever, because they'd broken the rules by having his child and not reporting him and having him removed. It's Travis that actually murdered them on a whim, because that's what it was. Because that's the kind of guy Travis was. He didn't give a damn about the parents. He didn't know who they were. They were just two people who were troublemakers that he needed to make an example of. And Madison found out all about it and uses that as a weapon. Revenge is always the best through line for a drama show, particularly if you're going to do a two-hander of torture. Then one of them's got to be on a mission, and revenge is the best mission.
When you're planning out a story, how do you break down where you're going to reveal information?
Oh God, I make it up as I go along.
Right.
Please don't attribute to me intense detail and breakdowns. I might have told John and Steve Lyons, I had incredible detail. With this one, I wrote the script. I think I wrote a draft of the script for myself. Then I turned it into a synopsis for them. So I kind of worked those kinks out, but I got a basic scene by scene for the script before they even had a synopsis, because that's kind of the best way I work. And then with their notes and their changes and their additional characters, I was then able to be a lot more flexible. There was a lot taken out. I remember there's a sequence that's an attack on a base that Madison is involved in. And that went on for a lot longer. That was a good sort of third of the actual play in flashback. And we took it all out. We cut it right back to sort of a couple of salient points. A, because I was drifting very long, and B, Steve Lyons said to me, it's irrelevant. We know that it happened. We know what the cause was. We know what the after effect was. That's all we need in the story. We don't actually need to see 15 minutes of the Dirty Dozen. And I thought, yeah, that was a very, very good point. I was getting carried away then. And also I was inventing millions of new characters that we couldn't afford. And of course, this one was made entirely during lockdown. This was my first experience obviously I didn't direct it, John directed it, but I was in on the recording, listening in, because the whole thing was down the line. Every actor was in their respective homes. And it wasn't being done on Riverside. What was it being done on? Some computer program that could do this stuff. And I found that quite fascinating. And I listened in for probably a good 3 or 4 hours as things were going on. I was talking to Stephen. It was the last time I actually spoke to Stephen, was on that recording. It was just fun to listen to stuff. It was weird not being in a studio and seeing the actors react to each other, but listening to them all listening to each other far and wide. Nobody was in a room at the same time. And I think that's very hard for the actors. I think it's incredibly hard for the director. But I always admired the fact that Big Finish didn't let lockdown slow them down. They found ways around it. So that you could keep all these actors and writers and directors employed, which is more than most businesses were doing during lockdown. And so it was quite an exciting experience that, on top of everything of just writing this script for a project I really liked, it was a lockdown production, and that was another whole new experience.
Stephen did an amazing performance as always. I'm sure he made
of course, yes.
exactly what he wanted.
And I
to
thought
do.
Cliff was very, very good as Madison. I think he got all the nuances that I was hoping would come out in the script, and I think he got them there really nicely. I was very pleased with that. I think Blake 7 is a very difficult market to actually sell product to. I don't think this is just exclusive to Big Finish. I think everyone that does Blake 7 merch these days, it's Doctor Who It's a weird thing. Doctor Who fandom at large is very pro spending money and keeping everything alive through the spin-off stuff. And I think Blake 7 fandom has been starved for 40 years of stuff. So when you come along and say, hey, we're now going to start doing this, this, and this, and this for Blake 7 fandom at large kind of goes, oh, that's not what we do. We don't do that. We don't create new stuff. They're very much about the 4 seasons of the show, and that's it. I remember when they did Sevenfold Crown and the other one, that, you know, fandom generally was quite anti that. Not because it was bad, they weren't great, but not because it was bad, but because I think Blake 7 fandom, and I'm not talking about individuals, because obviously there are loads of individuals who would be completely opposite to this and will love merchandise and stuff, but I think the majority of Blake 7 fandom are very invested in those 4 seasons on TV and very disinterested in additional fiction. And I think that's quite unique to that fandom. It makes that fandom quite interesting, I think, because when you try and break through to it and you try and say, look, here is that, you know, we're not taking anything away from what was on television, we're adding to it. And gradually you see people coming around to it. But it has been, I think, an uphill struggle.
Okay, well, so thank you for your thoughts, and been great talking to you as always.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Okay, let's move to the third story, Blackwater by Trevor Baxendale.
Avalon hopes to pull the resistance on Earth together with a bold attack upon an administration facility, but her plan might be doomed before she can put it into action, thanks to a traitor in the ranks.
Brilliant. Now, Blackwater, once again, interesting title, and actually has lots and lots of different meanings in terms of if you look it up. But firstly, Blackwater is fairly well known as a controversial American private military compound that was formed in 1997 and became very prominent during the Iraq War. So they sent in the Blackwater team, which was sort of a private military group of people that went in. But in terms of mostly known, Blackwater is waterways, so it's about water, which is a natural river or wetland area where floodwaters wash decaying organic matter, like leaves, into the water, releasing carbon and tannins that turn the water dark. So it's lots of wastage and things. And in terms of plumbing, it's used in plumbing, which is a term used by plumbers, which is wastewater which contains human waste, is Blackwater. So if you're a plumber,
I know that very well as a camper.
Stay away from the black water.
We've always got to empty the black water out of the caravan all the time.
Right. And then in terms of geography, it's lots of locations for lots of towns. In fact, in Queensland, central Queensland, there's a town called Blackwater, and there's lots of water bodies named Blackwater because of how black they are in terms of the actual look. This is named Blackwater, which of course is just a password, but it has the undercurrent of a lot of those meanings, I think, sitting there as well. What do people think of the actual story, though?
I found this one a bit hard to begin with, and then I found it turned around towards the end, and I really, really enjoyed it. I found that, the first part I just found quite a bit slow. I felt it dragging, and then once they got into the action, it really picked up, and I really started to enjoy it.
In some ways, this is one of those sort of traditional Blake 7 stories in terms of you've got the group how to try to infiltrate into a base. They're making plans in terms of how to do it. There's also a spy in the ranks. They're trying to work that out. And Avalon, once again, shows she's actually got a lot more knowledge and she's a lot smarter than you originally thought because she has managed to work out who the traitor is. It's also bringing back lots of characters that we've sort of met. So Avalon, of course, is there. Madison comes back, who has been now having to live outside because he was exposed because of who he was. He's still miserable. Faye, the young girl, is back and she's doing her thing. She's very loyal to people. Dev Towd has come back as a traitor, but also playing a couple of different lines. And then you've got a couple of other characters as well who've been introduced as well, more sort of on the Federation side. So this is a lot more of the action-adventure kind of thing, but once again shows the danger, which I think works really well.
I've got to say that for some reason throughout this episode, I was imagining this. I was imagining the look of the Sunmakers. So that's what I was seeing when I was hearing this story, and it's sort of a little bit like that when you look at the way back is a bit like the Sunmakers, but then you've got all the underground stuff and things going on and sort of industrial type visuals. That's the kind of thing that was put into my head by this story.
Yeah. And well, it does pick up on the sort of Terry Nation tropes of a big industrial running around a nuclear bunker sort of set or an oil refinery. It does have that sort of feel to it. Now we've actually had all three stories. What do we think of Avalon as a character? It's supposed to be sort of mirror setup of Blake and his team. While these three stories have been going on, we had Blake, getting the Liberator, rescuing and forming his crew. In these stories, we've got Avalon forming her crew. But what do we think of actually Avalon as a leader?
Well, I still think, for me, I still didn't have a clear picture of who she is because I didn't think she was in it enough, to be honest. I thought my image of her is that there's still a lot more that we don't know about her and that there's a lot still going on in the background that we're going to learn about, which makes me want to hear more from her. As a leader, though, I guess I didn't think much of it until she turned around and said, oh, and they were talking about Blackwater. And, we discovered that she knew who Dev Tarrant was and what Blackwater was and that it was a passcode.
The filter codes, there isn't much time, Avalon. We should get moving.
All right. Operation Blackwater is go.
Blackwater?
That's what we're calling the mission.
Why Blackwater?
Why not?
Because... well, no reason.
Good. Because I'd hate you to get it confused with anything else. Like a security access code for an exterior filtration vent, for instance.
How long have you known?
I don't know. I've suspected for a while. Then things just began to click.
And that's when she sort of became a little bit more interesting to me. And I thought, oh, there is a lot more going on in the background that they haven't actually told us about yet.
I think for me, she strikes me as a lot more cold and cynical than Blake. I'm comparing her to Blake as a rebel leader. He seems to, even though he has done some horrible things on the planets and places that he's gone to, he has an empathy with his crew that is quite touching. Yet I haven't seen that with the character of Avalon so much at this point. So maybe that'll come later.
Yeah, I agree. I think Avalon is deliberately a lot more, I'm not sure if ruthless is the right word, but she has less empathy, and all that matters to her is the mission. If people die, it doesn't matter. Even if people who she works with closely, they get betrayed, they get captured, they die, that doesn't matter. So she's quite willing to leave people behind, and she's quite willing to let people die in the process of,
Blake
no,
do that.
We're going to carry this through no matter what. And theoretically, Blake doesn't do that. I think as we keep doing the TV series, we'll see whether Blake is actually a bit... I already mentioned the fact I think actually Blake is interesting because he's actually, I think, a lot more ruthless than he comes across. Because Gareth plays him with a warmth and with a smile, and you actually think he's a lot more for you. But when it actually comes down to it, I think Blake's quite willing to break a neck without thinking about it and blow up, innocent people and factory workers. And because to him, the mission's there too, but somehow he gets away with a bit more. I think with Avalon, we're seeing just this cold, calculated side, which is all that matters is winning. And whoever dies in the process doesn't matter. Sound design? What did you notice about this one, Dwayne? So this one's been done by David Rucroft.
Yeah, so David Rucroft does a lot of the BBC stuff as well. So it's quite minimal, which I like minimal stuff. I think compared to Nigel's a bit more melodic with his sounds. Rucroft is more minimal. I found it really fascinating, actually, listen to the extras and hear all the sound designers talking about what they were doing on this set. That was really good. And I was surprised that David Rucroft did not have the voice that I expected. So it was very interesting to actually hear
he was that young guy. He was that really young sounding guy, wasn't he? Yes.
The sort of softly spoken, very softly spoken, slightly high pitched voice. I did not expect that.
No, yes.
Which is neither here nor there, but I just thought it was interesting. I went, oh, it was a surprise. Yes, very, very good stuff. Good to hear from all the writers as well. So Trevor Baxendale, You don't really hear him much on the Big Finish extras for the Doctor Who's that he does, but it was good to hear what he had to say about this as well, having written the third one. So yeah, I really enjoyed those aspects of the production side. The extras were great.
So before we go to each episode, any other comments people want to make about the whole box set as a whole, how it worked for you?
For me, it was a very solid start to the reign. There were some great things to come. There were some things that I wasn't too sure about that were to come. I think it was a solid start, and it's obvious the way that was written that was planned to do at least 2 box sets of Avalon. So yeah, it leaves you wanting to know more about Avalon. So I think it does the job well.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were 3 pretty solid stories. I thought they were done well, flowed into each other. They flowed from one to another. I think they did that really well.
So we will listen to the second box set down the track, but it introduces characters that we haven't yet met. So we will hold off until in the TV series we've met the characters. I suspect the original aim was actually to do a lot more box sets than just 2. But John Ainsworth gave up I don't know whether he gave it up, where he was asked to move elsewhere. It got too busy. But the Blake 7 range, the world of Blake 7, moved to someone else.
Oh, it went to Peter Angelides, didn't it?
That's right, with Peter Angelides. And so I don't think Peter Angelides was interested in particularly following through with what was being created here. So I suspect John Ainsworth had a big picture plan for where Avalon was going to go. I think it was trying to run parallel with Blake 7 and his crew. You're going to have Avalon and her crew and their stories being told. So it would be interesting to keep comparing, and we'll see more in the second box set, how John Ainsworth, his vision in terms of how would a different rebel cell group form and look, as opposed to the one that we know so well. But in the end, John Ainsworth moved on to other things, bigger, better things in lots of ways too. And Peter Angelides took over the Worlds of Blake 7 range. And actually, I love what he does too. And so we'll get to see what he does down the track. So just quickly, we will actually score these. So Terra Firma by Steve Lyons. What would you give it out of 10?
A 7. I'm going to give it a 7.
It gets an 8 from me.
Yep, I got to give it an 8 just because Cylinder Bet's in it. Good. What about Throwback by Gary Russell?
I'm giving that one a 9. I enjoyed that the most.
It has to be a 9 from me. I probably enjoy the first story just as much, but it's got so many good things. Stephen Greif, our friend Nigel Fairs, it's got our friend Gary Russell, all those people involved with it. Got to give it a 9.
Yeah, I'll give it a 9 too. I just love the interplay between Travis and Madison. I just love the conversation between them both. I think it works really well. And so, yes, I'm giving that a 9 as well. And finally, the third story, Blackwater by Trevor Baxendale. What do people think?
I'll give that one an 8.
Same here. I give that one an 8 as well. I love Trevor Baxendale's writing, and it's solid writing here for this story.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 7 before I listened to it again. And then listening to it again, I really enjoyed it and actually had the action going and kept me really excited. So I'm going to give it an 8 as well. So all good scores. That started off really well. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this Worlds of Blake 7 sidestep as we started off with Blake 7 Avalon. You've been watching Blake 7 The Way Back Sidesteps with Chris Beer, Dwayne Bunny and Philip Edney. Thanks to our special guest, the writer Gary Russell. Music by Simon Powell and Nigel Fairs. You can purchase Avalon Box Set 1 on the Big Finish website. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and join us next time as we discuss the next episode, Breakdown.